Could Derek Carr be gone soon? At least that is what NFL Insider is saying today. And listen, this NFL Insider is a guy who has been one of my favorite follows for a long time now because he reports on things that you don't really see the national or local media pick up on, right? He gets around these teams during draft season especially and reports all these little nuggets that you just really don't hear anywhere else. He has been right a ton in the past, at least since I've been following him. He's been first on a lot of little Saints nuggets over the years. And so when he speaks on something or when he talks about the Saints in any way, my eyes perk up and I listen to what he has to say. So the analyst I'm talking about or the insider I'm talking about is Tony Pauline. Okay. And today he dropped a mock draft, right? Mock draft. Of course, draft season, you're going to get a ton of these, over the next couple of months. But I scroll down, of course, immediately to where he is talking about the New Orleans Saints. Of course, the Saints are picking ninth, and you can see right here, he has the Saints selecting Shadur Sanders, right? Quarterback from Colorado, polarizing player. Seems like you either love him or you hate him. And but what he says after that is what caught my eye. So he says Derek Carr could be gone soon, and he's not the Saints starting quarterback of the future. Hiring Kellen Moore as a head coach makes this selection all the more realistic. Now, the last line he says Kellen Moore as a head coach makes this selection all the more realistic. What does he mean by that? It just means that the way that Kellen Moore wants to call a game really meshes well with Shadur Sanders' style of play, right? Short level accuracy, capable in RPOs, and can move a little bit with his legs when he needs to, right? Similar to Jalen Hurts' play style. Okay. And so in terms of what he meant by that last line, that's what he means there. I think at least, right? But let's talk about the first part of it. So he says that Derek Carr could be gone soon. Now that is interesting to me. And I would ask Tony, what do you mean by soon? Do you mean like soon as in before the season starts? Do you mean soon um like before next year sometime in the off season? Like what do you mean by soon? Okay, because don't get me excited here, man. All right? Because the sooner the better that Derek Carr is off the team, that I'll be a happy camper, okay? And then he says, and he is not the Saints quarterback of the future. That's a pretty definitive statement if you ask me, and I don't think that's anything groundbreaking to say that. I think, given his age, his history with injuries over the last couple of seasons, it's not crazy to say that he is not the Saints quarterback of the future, and he's just never really meshed well in New Orleans as the starting quarterback, really from the get go. I mean, let's be honest, he just hasn't, and I think one thing that really, shows that is where has he been this offseason? Like, where is Derek Carr at right now? Like, I haven't seen him speak about Kellen Moore's hiring, like an Instagram post, comment on anything. I haven't seen. He wasn't at the press conference when they, hired Kellen Moore. He wasn't anywhere there during the Super Bowl week in New Orleans when Drew Brees was, Rattler was, Sean Payton was, other Saints players were. Where is the starting quarterback of the team? Where was he during that? I didn't see him during any of Mardi Gras. I didn't see him like just where's Derek Carr? Where is Derek Carr? Now, I think a lot of that has to do with Derek Carr doesn't really want to be in New Orleans. And I think that was confirmed by the fact that he wanted to test the market before they ended up restructuring his deal. And it was reported that it was Mickey Loomis who really wanted to get that deal done with Derek Carr and not the other way around. Derek Carr has been confirmed that he was willing to test the market and in fact wanted to test the market to see, if there was any interest in him being the starting quarterback anywhere else. So that's not a rumor. That's not anything. That is true. Derek Carr wanted to test the market. So I think him not being around, him not really, showing his face lately is just the fact that he doesn't really want to be in New Orleans. And a couple of weeks ago, it was reported or some rumors were swirling that he still wants to be traded out of New Orleans. Now, with them restructuring his contract, that makes it pretty much close to impossible without being impossible as you could possibly get, right? So I don't think that he is going to be traded. I don't think that's likely at all. But I think that he would like to be traded, right? And again, that don't mean he is going to be. It just means that he wants to be, right? So that's just my take on the situation. But again, when I come across this from Tony Pauline, a guy who has been right more than he has been wrong, and who really, especially during draft season, this is what he does. This is his forte. He speaks on this when he says Derek Carr could be gone soon. It really makes you think, like, what does Tony know? What exactly is Pauline talking about here? So it really makes you think. Now listen, I think the sooner the better that you move on from Derek Carr and you get to the future of the franchise, the better, right? Because you really have a good opportunity, and I've spoke on it so many times in the past on this channel. Like this is the perfect opportunity, the perfect year to move on from the Derek Carr era of the New Orleans Saints. Let that era die along with the Dennis Allen era. Let it be a new regime. Let it be a breath of fresh air with a new head coach, a new quarterback. Let them grow together, let them learn together, and let them blossom together, right? Instead of just trying to do the same old thing over and over with Derek Carr, a guy who has proven that he cannot win at the highest levels in the National Football League, right? And hopefully that's the case. Hopefully Tony Pauline knows something that the rest of us don't know, because I would be ecstatic if the Saints were to find a way to move on from Derek Carr, even with the financial, ramifications, if you will. Like I don't care. Make it happen at all costs, because it's clear that the only person that wants Derek Carr to be the quarterback of the Saints is Mickey Loomis. Derek Carr doesn't even want to be the starting quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. Okay, so let him go, trade him, let him go blossom, or whatever he thinks he can do somewhere else that he hasn't been able to do in the past 10, 11 seasons that he has been in the NFL. So that's all I'll say about that. Um, as far as like the Saints draft situation and the do I think taking a quarterback at the number 9 spot would be smart? I would say that if you have your new head coach and he has a guy that he really likes, then absolutely. You do it's hard to find a really good quarterback in the National Football League. There's like maybe 7 guys who I would consider really, really good quarterbacks. And then there's, maybe 5, 6 guys that you can consider franchise quarterbacks. And then the rest are pretty easily replaceable in the NFL. And I think Derek Carr definitely falls in the latter of that category of being replaceable. So if Kellen Moore really has his eye on Shadur Sanders and he loves him and he thinks he can make magic with him out on the football field, then go for it. Why not? Like if you really think that Shadur Sanders is your guy, then draft him. Swing until you miss. I can't remember who came up with that quote in terms of, trying to find a quarterback, but it is so true. You should literally take a swing after swing after swing, and eventually, at least hopefully, you'll hit a home run. And look, whether that's Shadur Sanders, who I like him as a prospect. I think he's really a guy that is going to methodically get you down the field, and he can throw deep as well, right? Don't get me wrong, he can throw the ball deep, but he's more of a methodical quarterback, similar to the style of quarterback play that Drew Brees gave us. Especially towards the end of his career, right? But there's also guys like Cam Ward, the Miami quarterback, who he has going number 1 overall in this mock draft here. But Cam Ward even spoke recently about how it would be an honor to be the Saints quarterback. He even mentioned Marcus Colston's name. And anytime you hear that, especially from a younger guy, that tells me he's tuned in. You know what I mean? And so Cam Ward is another guy who is assumed to be going in the first round. There's Jackson Dart, who has also been mentioned with the Saints. I think it was it Mel Kiper or Todd McShay? One of those two bozos had Jackson Dart going to the Saints at the 9th overall pick. So there's him. There's Cal McCord, who later in the rounds, who I'm a big fan of. But moral of the story is, if Kellen Moore likes a quarterback and he is there at number 9, go for it. Why not? Appreciate you guys watching. Peace.